So one night that your name always comes up in, of course, is the Screwjob. And you sort of playing the somewhere between peacemaker / kind of hearing
Enforcer.
Bret out and enforcer. Can you take us through a little bit how you remember that thing playing out for you?
So, at that time, Bret and I, we still are we're pretty close. Bret's radar was up. Like he felt like something might go down. And so I was kind of working my way around. Like I kept asking Earl Hebner, I was like, hey, did you hear anything? Is anything going on? And, every time I asked him, it was no, because I don't think he found out till late, really late, what was going to happen. But yeah, so I'm just kind of, just keeping my, my ears and my radar was up, like, okay, what's going to happen here? Is anything going to happen? And then it was getting close to the match time, and this is the one place where I let my guard down. Someone said, "Hey, why don't you go watch the match from Vince's office?" And so I was thinking, okay, that's fine. So I went back and was sitting in Vince's office watching the match. And then it all went down. All hell breaks loose, and I ended up working my way to Bret's locker room, and just like, I cannot believe that this happened. And finally, I left there, and I went to get Vince. So I was like, Vince has got to address this to Bret. And so I left there and was going to Vince's office. Vince was already on his way. He was already on his way to come talk to Bret about it. Of course, all the boys are, in an uproar. And what I kind of did was like, all right, this is bad enough as it is. A lot of you guys that it doesn't affect, it doesn't matter, needs to stay the hell out of here, right? So there was a lot of people I didn't let in the dressing room. So I think Bret had Owen and Davey Boy. Seems like there was somebody else.
Was Jim there? Jim was still there.
It might have been Jim.
It might have been Jim. And then Bret, and then Shawn was there, and then Vince came in with Shane and Jerry Briscoe, Pat Patterson, and Bruce Pritchard. So everybody sits down. Vince on one side, Bret's on the other side, and I took Shawn to the far end of the dressing room, and I sat next to Shawn because I knew at some point he was going to chime in, and that wasn't going to help anything. So we're sitting down there, and they're kind of going back and forth. Vince is trying to explain his position, and Bret's giving his thoughts on what he thought about Vince and what he did, and basically said, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to shower, I'm going to get dressed. If you're still here, I'm going to knock you out, kind of a deal. And that's basically, they talked, he showered, he got dressed, they got up, and Vince said, I'm going to give you one. And I have, to this day, I cannot figure out how that punch got through so many people. It was like, I don't know, because there were so many people in there, and they weren't like face to face, but and that punch got through. He hit Vince went down, and that was it.
So Bret says it was an uppercut. What did you see? Was it a right cross? Was it a jab?
It was a right hand for sure. I don't know if it was an uppercut or more of a right, kind of a looping overhand right. But I know it hit him right in the temple. It hit him right in the temple.
And is that just sort of the kind of guy Vince McMahon is, that if he feels that in this circumstance, the only thing that's going to happen is he's got to take the shot, he's just going to take it and kind of get up and keep it moving because he knows that's kind of what the locker room needs?
I think so. I think, Vince didn't want to do that.
Who wants to volunteer for a punch in the face?
Well, no, I mean, Vince didn't want to have to do business that way.
Right, of course.
In Vince's eyes, he couldn't let Bret leave with the belt and then end up on WCW TV the next day with the WWF belt. That was, so, and to the best of my understanding, Bret was not going to drop the belt to Shawn.
You think you could have helped if Vince had enlisted you to try to help with Bret? You think there's any way you could have helped?
I definitely could have. And that was, so the next day, so I was really pissed. I was pissed that it got to that point. And I didn't know, I didn't show up the next day till really late because I didn't know if I was going to TV the next day. Mick didn't go. And it was late in the day before I decided, no, I got to go find out what the hell, what happened here and why it was done this way. My point being was you should have switched, you should have switched me. You should have put me in the match somehow with Bret. I'm sure Bret would have dropped it to me.
Right.
And then I could have dropped it to Shawn later on, right after that.
Right.
And
there was a way to do it.
There was a different way to do it, but Vince had to make sure, and he had to make, he had to cover his bases, I guess, in his mind. And but that's kind of the point, I think, where the whole locker room leader was really starting to come about. Because
that had to solidify it. I was going to say that must have been
the boys knew how upset I was that one of us got screwed over, but then the office kind of could see the point of, okay, he's trying to do what's best for business. And it was that way for me. It was I'll defend you if you need to be defending, but it all ends up, it's all about business at the end of the day. And that's where I fell in that, it was one of the rare people that I guess that kind of fell into that groove where I was trusted. Yes, I was one of the boys, but I was trusted by the office, just like, I was sitting in on their meetings. I wasn't, but.
A wrestling question. Where did you get the inspiration to come up with so many signature moves that are not finishers? Whether it's snake eyes, choke slam, last ride, old school. Was there someone who inspired you to do that? And also, where did I might have missed where this happened. Where did the name Old School come for Old School?
Oh, it's funny. I want to say it either came from Tommy Dreamer or, of all people, Victoria.
Really?
I'm not sure which one of them was, but one of them just yelled out one day, "Old School," and it stuck. And especially when I was American Badass, I'd yell out "Old School," and that just stuck. I can't take credit for that. That somebody just said it, I think, in passing. And
was that just a thing you'd always been able to do, that you knew was a good trick of yours, that you were so big but could walk the top rope?
So when I broke in Texas, I got an opportunity to work with the original Spoiler. And that was his move. He was about 6'4", 6'5", about 275. And I knew when he did it to me, I said, as soon as this guy retires, and he was late in his career, I said, that's mine, And so, I watched him do it and figured it out. And, there was a time there that I actually walked the top rope and walked down the top rope and then dropped an elbow. But that's probably one of the reasons my hips got so bad. I remember when I was in WCW, Jody Hamilton, we'd do 3 or 4, squash matches in a TV taping. And I remember coming back one day and Jody Hamilton was sitting there at the monitor, and he kind of peeked up over his glasses, and he goes, "You're taking years off your career there, kid." I was like, "No, sir, Mr. Hamilton. I'll be able to do this forever." Little did I know, by the time that I started with WWE, I already had a limp, and it was from dropping that flying elbow off the top rope.
How's the leg drop on the apron feel, by the way? That's another one you do that always looks brutal.
It is. It's brutal for me. It's not so. It's not. I mean, depends who it is. But
no, it should be good for them. But for you,
it's pretty good for them.
That's not the place on the ring you want to fall. I mean,
that's the hardest part of the ring, and it looks great, but man, it's rough, and it gets rougher. Like when you're doing it all the time, you kind of get conditioned to it. Yeah. But when you do it like once or twice a year, it's like, ooh. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that felt like. Yeah.
But is there anyone else that did that? I mean, listen, there's everyone has their setup, right? Randy, of course, has that second rope DDT. People will have one or two things, but you really have like a lot of signature moves. Was that a plan, or these are just things that happened over years and years?
Yeah, I mean, 30 years. Come on, man. I mean, you got to pick up. That's where a lot of guys go wrong now. In the way they work is they have those two or three moves, and they do them every single week, right? And then they don't have anything else really that they come up with, and they just keep relying on those same moves, like old school, for example. After so many years of seeing it, I would use it as a cutoff spot. Like I would start up, I'd get on that second rope, and I'd let whoever it was, throw a couple of body shots in there and bring me out of it. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully, sometimes depending on the crowd, then I'd go back to it and pay it off later, or maybe they didn't get it that night, But I had to give options. There were certain times that I would get to the top rope, and then I'd let them arm drag me off the top rope. But I would use those signature moves to set up, spots that they weren't expecting. But I mean, it's after what you have to consider how much TV time that I've had. If you don't continually add to the repertoire, then you're gonna come pretty stale pretty quick.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.